Okay, we're going live. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Dorsey's Resource. It's Justice Hammer here. We're going live. First, as usual, before we get started, the topic of this video is going to be hashtag walk away, why I'm no longer a Democrat. This is going to be part two. This is sort of like a continuation of the video that I did last night. As I mentioned, I was going to do a follow-up. I normally don't discuss politics, but I wanted to get this off my chest. And I've been saying this for a while. I have a lot of notes compiled with me. There's a lot of information that I do plan on going over if I have enough time. I'm also on a time restraint. But first, as usual, before we get started, I'd like to give a disclaimer. This video is going to be for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only. Please understand everyone's individual circumstance or situation might be different. It's up to every individual competent person to please do his or her own homework and research regarding the matter being discussed. This information is not to be construed as legal advice. In the event you feel you need to seek a competent professional, it is encouraged you do so at one's own leisure. Dorsey's Resource channel is not liable or responsible for anyone's misuse of the information being presented. With that, all rights are reserved. Everyone is responsible for their own affairs. Please govern yourselves accordingly. Now, I want to thank you guys once again, all my subscribers, those who continue to follow my channel. I greatly appreciate you all. I gave a short notice, and without further ado, to jump right in, this is once again a continuation. I have a lot of notes to go over here. Why I'm no longer a Democrat, and one of the reasons I want to go over how I personally witnessed egregious Democratic political corruption from the city that I'm in. I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio. I also saw some documentaries on that particular city that has some of the same issues as Detroit. I'm currently in Detroit, and I want to say throughout the years, I've witnessed a lot of political corruption. I myself, I want to say up front, personally not a registered voter. However, I still pay attention to politics. And this time around, in this particular video, I brought my former voter registrations. By the way, 3 of them that I canceled just to hold it up to the camera, by the way. And I've not been a registered voter since 2004. However, I still want to give my opinion about the things, why I would never come back to the party. By the way, as I get a lot of emails, I've gotten inboxes in the past from relatives who, go along with the basically along with the agenda. By the way, also during this time, around this same time period, I follow other YouTube channels, and there's one particular channel in particular who is having this discussion right now. You all might not have heard of. His name is he goes Angry Man, but he had to change, I guess, the name of his channel because in years past he was being targeted by YouTube, of course, as many are. I don't know what his affiliation is, how he's registered as a voter, but he's going over the reason why he supports Trump, that he feels he's the better option, by the way. So just interesting. This is a hot topic that a lot of people have done walkaway videos. I've done one. That's why I put the hashtag in there. But I'm going over what I intend to do, and for this video, the reasons why I would never come back to the Democratic Party if I was. By the way, I still want to give my weigh in and my opinion. By the way, so technically, I'm apolitical. However, I still give my option. Why I feel that the Republicans, the Conservative Party, is the better option, and I explained last night more of their values align with my personal values. For example, I'm pro-life. They uphold the Second Amendment. I'm for God, family, and the Constitution. Let me say that again. I'm for God, family, and the Constitution. Even though I don't attend regular church anymore on a consistent basis, I grew up in the Christian church. And by the way, I'm gonna acknowledge you all in the chat section. You guys are welcome to chime in, by the way, for those watching. And let's try to keep it related to the topic. I'll probably do a follow-up Q&A video for like any type of topic whatever, if I go live tomorrow. And this topic is normally not in my usual perspectives. However, I wanted to give my opinion as we're leading up to this historic election, another contentious election similar to back in 2016, but maybe even more contentious. I understand where both sides are coming from, and I'm just giving my way in. And I've got a lot of notes versus last night in comparison. The reason why I swing more to the right versus the left. I see a few of you all in the chat. Someone just jumped in. All this woman says, if you're not a registered voter, then are neither Republican or Democrat. So what is the point? Well, my point is in reference to just to let my family members or those who follow me know to answer your question or your statement, Artist, is that I still follow politics and still give in. I'm also in a different category. By the way, I attended this event some years ago, and I'm not making this up. I have supporting documentation to back that up. It was an event with an elite group of people. By the way, I was trying to transition into the private sector. I won't go into all that. Some people who do know me personally or have followed my channel know the type of things that I've discussed. And there's a totally different category. I still respect the process of, I want to say, and I want to also reiterate, I don't want to be attached to the negative consequences that come with being a registered voter, because you actually, there's a different category where nationals, I came across a video recently from someone that teaches information related to redemption, that there's supposed to be a national forum for people in a different category that's like a form of citizenship above being a U.S. citizen, but that's a whole another, and it's supposed to be a national forum from what they were going over, but this information is hidden, especially for those that they're trying to transition at a certain level within the caste system of the United States government. You're doing business as the legal person. That in lingus is the name in the court system. So there's actually supposed to be, from what I understand, this individual was showing a separate form, which would put one under a different category, by the way, because when you're registered, there's a difference between registration and when you record. So the reason they want you to be registered, you already have a right to vote under the Constitution. By the way, I told a friend of mine some years ago, I've never tried it, but a friend of mine actually listened to me and took my advice and told me, I didn't find out till after the fact, he said he did an affidavit vote, by the way, which I don't know, he didn't, I think he was registered, but he did a different type of way. He didn't, he went and just that's where they make you submit an affidavit or whatnot. You still might have to show your ID because it's already in the Constitution. But understand, when they register you, that is a form of a contract. This video isn't really about that. I did a video on my second backup channel, Dorsey's Resource Channel 2, where I actually delve into that, and I've actually discussed some things behind the scenes with some subscribers, people that I met personally that have followed my channel, that do know, by the way, there's a negative conflicts that's attached to that, especially for African Americans. By the way, I won't go into the details about that, and it has something to do with the. I'll give you a hint, with the law enforcement, with the police. By the way, Mary Saunders says, "Good evening, Mr. Dorsey. Appreciate you, Mary. Thank you for joining as a loyal subscriber. Appreciate you." All this woman says, "By not voting, you are part of the problem, not the solution." However, I understand where you're coming from, but at the same time, that is necessarily true. The purpose of this video, I'm explaining, from my opinion, what's the better option, because there's a lot of corruption that I personally witnessed. I want to say that there's certain contracts that I do not enter into. By the way, this might not sound the normal. This is contrary to popular belief, because keep in mind, a lot of citizens and people are sheeple, or referred to as sheep, where they don't do their research or don't know about the private sector or the ruling class elite that run things. And I'm just giving my weigh in on my opinion about things related, where why I'm not a registered voter. However, at the same time, I still pay attention, and actually your local elections, still are very important. And I participated in those things many years ago until I actually woke up in the year 2004. To give you guys a little history, I voted for former Mayor Kwame Kilpatrick. He was known as a hip hop mayor. as some of you all may not know that follow my channel, by the way, he was known around the country. I think historically he was maybe the youngest mayor ever. He was African American. They gave him the title, the hip hop mayor, by the way, and I voted for him in the primaries. It wasn't the main mayoral election that year, but he eventually had to leave office or step down because of a scandal. And I remember when our local news stations, WXYZ Channel 7 here in Detroit, as well as others, WDIV4, Channel 2, they covered a lot on not just the corruption, the scandal dealing that he was involved with, but also City Hall corruption. And these were all Democrats that I personally witnessed. There was a city council member by the name of Monica Conyers, by the way. I remember it was a big story where she had got involved in a big scandal with another city council member named Ken Cockrell at the time. I mean, there was a very vicious debate that they had where she had even called him Shrek or whatever. It was kind of funny. It was in the news. I remember our local news station covered that because I've been a resident of Detroit for a number of years, but I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio. And I also have a relative in the Cleveland, Ohio area that's worked political campaigns. I even had another relative at one time who was a judge and was even a U.S. senator at one time, but is disgraced. I won't go into the details about that. I've personally witnessed and seen things why I've seen way more corruption when it comes to the Democratic Party. The Republicans, conservative party, are not perfect. They do have their issues, but overall, I think the corruption is a lot more rampant with the Democratic Party. By the way, when you look at cities like Baltimore, I support candidates that I've looked at across the country that are running in this historic election for other positions. Kim Klacik, I hope that she wins. I'm sending my love down there, as well as others. Very similarly, the city of Baltimore has been under Democratic rule for a number of years, by the way. And I have a friend that's actually from there. One of my best friends, by the way, is from that area, and we've had private conversations. And I would compare it with how bad Detroit was, and I would tell him about how the east side of Detroit was being known for being worse, even though a lot of the crime is happening on the west side when you look at the news. But these days, drug dealing, car theft rings, like the movie New Jersey Drive, etc. By the way, so I'm just going over the reasons. I'm gonna try to find the notes here. I don't want to be kind of all over the place or whatnot. Okay, I got the title out the way. Okay, so just bear with me here. Let me see which article is this. Okay, this is an article I did about reparations. This was for a separate video, but there were some notes that I had compiled in here in regards to black men. I don't know if I'm going to touch on that point. Let me scroll down here, by the way. Okay, not that part, that section. Okay. All right. As you guys also wonder, I posted a picture, a photo, by the way, when I gave you guys a heads up that I would be going live, which YouTube allows you to do now. If you look at the community section, not just my channel, but other channels, if you see where YouTube now allows people to, content creators to post like photos or messages to their subscribers or followers, similar to Facebook, Twitter, and other platforms. By the way, I posted an image of the article from the Epoch Times. I think they report, they're fair, honest reporting media. I had a friend that personally told me that he plans on subscribing to them, by the way, because a lot of the big mainstream media outlets are controlled by the ruling class, by globalists who don't have our best interest at heart, who put out misinformation, but yet they claim there's something that they don't agree with. They call it hate speech or whatever, or label an individual whose belief system that doesn't align with theirs. They will label them as racist, xenophobe, homophobe, etc. And this is other things that are concerning that I talked about in the video that I did last night, how I don't see the censorship coming from the right, from the Republican Party. I see that predominantly coming from the left. And this is done in communist countries where and there's other countries as well. And if you look at history, if you study history historically, this is indication that the Democratic Party is being used to bring in socialism and communism, which is very concerning. If the average young person does their research or finds out about it, I think they would be very concerned and startled, especially if they find out that the CEO of Apple, Tim Cook, has factories over China and other parts of the world, slave factories with children working at them for hours per day. I shared this with a couple relatives of mine that were liberal, and they were very appalled. I'm like, yeah, you won't hear about this information. There was even some type of Hollywood award show earlier this year, or going back sometime last year. Don't quote me on it, where a guy, you know how they have these comedians that speak at the Oscars or Emmy Awards. I don't remember which award show it was. This comedian was making these jokes, but they were actually based on real facts, real truth, what I just mentioned about. And it was funny where he put it in a comedic way, but actually went over a few of these things in like a comedy, a form of comedy where people just kind of laugh it off, but in a disguised manner. But these were things that are actually going on, by the way. And what I commend a lot of comedians like Chris Rock even said, by the way, he was quoted some years ago. He said there's two types of black people. He said there's black people and then there's niggers. Excuse my French, but not my words. But there's other content creators that even recently talked about this, by the way, that I follow. And this is pretty well known. You can do your research on that. And I think I fall in the category where I'm a man of integrity, and I see the Republican Conservative Party is more so for family structure. The Democratic Party, liberal progressive party, wants to get rid of the family. In my opinion, they support abortion. I'm more pro-life. By the way, even though I was raised in a Christian church, I no longer attend church. I grew up in a Pentecostal Church of God in Christ denomination. So my parents instill values in me. I'm not trying to be like I'm on this moral high horse to say that this makes me perfect, but overall, it gave me a foundation to have integrity, to have morals, values, and ethics. And I don't see the Democratic Party upholding these ethics, especially when it comes to ethics, business ethics, and government. I've seen egregious crimes being committed, and when it's on their side, they oftentimes will cover for their other secret society members or their club buddies who are committing very egregious crimes. And that's one of the reasons we're in the mess that we're in the first place. And that's who you refer to as the deep state, the evil, corrupt club members who are very corrupt in their behavior or have done things that they have not been held accountable for as of yet. So I believe in transparency, checks and balances, by the way. They also see someone in the chat. I'm going to show the message and ask me, okay, Royal Goddess says, okay, at that point, says, I understand where you're coming from. Okay, Royal Goddess says, facts. Human child sex trafficking is deep. Pizzagate, yes. Thank you for confirming. And that's another thing about the Democratic Party. There's a connection with Hollywood and the entertainment industry, not only the hip hop industry where they use rappers as props to help try to promote them. Like if you heard Joe Biden interview the rap artist Cardi B, and there was some type of beef that she had with Candace Owens over it. And I kind of touched on a little bit of that. I didn't do a separate video about that. But however, there's the deep connection of the Democratic Party with a lot of the activities that they align themselves with the entertainment industry, which has come out, the Nexium sex cult, by the way, which the mainstream media has not been reporting on. A lot of human trafficking arrests that have been happening in multiple states. I heard they're even trying to cover this up, where the House of Representatives, which Nancy Pelosi is the overseer of, voted to make QAnon extremist group or some conspiracy theory, where they say it's believed that they believe that Trump was fighting, or the people that are followers of Q, that Trump is fighting against a worldwide sex trafficking ring. But there is some truth to that. You have, if you look at the arrests that have happened recently from Atlanta, Georgia, there was an article that came out not too long ago. There was arrests made in Indiana, Ohio. There was a multi-state operation, and this actually has been going on since Trump has been in office. So this is another thing. Democrats have a tendency, the liberal progressive party, to let things like this sweep it under the rug. I did see some of the mainstream outlets, not all, but a few report on the Jeffrey Epstein situation and his girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell, by the way. Just putting it out there. So thank you for confirming in the chat, Royal Goddess. I meant to also touch on that because I do have a lot of information, but the notes that I have are, different folders, articles that I have, by the way. So just keep that in mind. Sonia Johnson says, "What's up, Dorsey? Thank you for joining, Sonia. Appreciate you." Royal Goddess says, "Yes." John Patton says, "Dorsey, greetings, brother." Greetings to you, John. Thank you for joining. Royal Goddess says, "Arrests are on the Department of Justice's website." Okay. Yeah, a lot of people are rooting for, believe it or not, that the mainstream media tries to make it seem like there's a lot of minorities that do support Trump, and there is a large following, I'm finding out from my Twitter account, of African Americans and Hispanic, the Latin community, that do support Trump, a significant portion. They will even try to downplay it in local videos I saw where they were protesting at the Capitol during the lockdown. There was even an African American sister that I saw marching with some other white people, and they will try to cover those types of images because the mainstream media, which is predominantly 90% liberal control, doesn't want to show images of Black and white people together, whatever. They want to always try to paint this picture that all white people are racist, by the way. And that's just simply not true. You have both sides. You have a lot of Trump supporters, like I said, to reiterate, that are African American, that are of Latin descent, that are all in and truth about the Democratic Party, and they know how Joe Biden, if you can look up, he still has a video on YouTube where he supported the 1994 crime bill, which was responsible for locking a lot of African American men up and women back in the 90s, and Clinton signed this bill into law, by the way. And Joe Biden was one of the people that lobbied for it hard. And then when Kamala Harris, when she was state's attorney in California, she was even responsible of that sort. So when it's convenient, they're playing a role, by the way. So I lost my connection. Okay, I'm back. I'm not sure in case you guys are still here. Thank you. Lost my connection temporarily. Okay, I see Currency 365 in the chat. Thank you for the super chat, Currency 365. So I appreciate you. He says, "Dorsey, by the way, a resource, have a great live stream, brother. Legends never die. They stay in our hearts." Appreciate you. Yes, real legends never die. I like that quote, that cliche that you came up with, and I appreciate you for the super chat. See, R. Chapman in the chat says, "Greetings, Dorsey. Always look forward to your videos. Appreciate your knowledge." Appreciate you all for joining me so far, everyone. If you haven't done so yet, please hit the thumbs up button. You're also welcome to share this video, and if you haven't, make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell in the lower right hand corner, so whenever I put out new videos, YouTube should notify you. And I say keyword should notify you because, as you know, they've censored, I would say, not only my channel, but maybe not as bad as some other channels and other content creators out there. I have noticed if there's something that doesn't go along with their narrative, then they've even kicked people right off without even giving them strikes at all. And that's another reason why I swing more to the right in terms of the conservatism and support of Trump, because I see the censorship and egregious activities coming from the left, which controls a lot of these big tech companies like Facebook with Mark Zuckerberg. Remember when people tried to share the video of the doctors that were sharing information about COVID-19? I never saw this happen before, but I had a relative, and this relative of mine, not going into the details specifically who they are, said that they saw the video that I had posted. They were aware it was the video with that African doctor was with the other doctors who were in the white lab coats. And I never saw this before in a coordinated effort. Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube all removed that video just like that, just immediately. I never saw that before. So hopefully something can be done about that, because I've touched on this before. These big social media tech giants are violating antitrust laws. I found out they all registered as public utilities, by the way, which means many years ago, utility companies could not discriminate against you if you had water, lights, gas bill. They had to be fair, just like the telephone company. Even if they didn't like your political views, they had to provide service to you. So they're operating in the public, so they have to be fair and the public square of things when people interact and do business, do e-commerce, electronic digital commerce, and they've been egregious with this activity because they're by the left, the Democratic Liberal Progressive Party, by the way. And there's others who have talked about this as well. This is another reason why I walked away from the Democratic Party. I would never come back. And in case you guys are wondering, I know it might sound like an oxymoron contradiction that I'm not a registered voter, but I want to give my take on why I swing more to the right versus the left. And what's funny is I'm left-handed, but they say that left-handed people use the right side of their brain. So that means I think the right way. I've actually had other people tell me this in the past, by the way, no pun intended, but I'm just saying, you know, that I see a lot of these crimes and coming from the Democratic Party. So hopefully, let me see if I can find some more notes. So I was going over the Epoch Times. They have YouTube advertisement commercials that provide concise evidence of the deep state, the surveillance that was committed by the previous administration, number 44, which this is not a conspiracy theory. NPR put out a statement in relation to something that they were discussing about the DNC not too long ago, that Trump claims that he was spied on, and they said this is not true. I'm here to tell NPR, no, they're lying, they're fabricating information. There was surveillance. Now, some people might get into the semantics that wiretap is old, you know, that was just like older technology, by the way. It's been proven there was a form of surveillance being committed. And, you know, I hear that there's investigations going on, but the Epoch Times has put out, they even have a YouTube advertisement commercial. Once again, I've noticed they put out concise information, and a good friend of mine told me he was considering subscribing to them, by the way. So that's why when I let you guys, gave you all short notice of me going live, I showed like a map, because you can kind of go online and type in images. This is how I do research, by the way, and investigate. Use different search engines, web browsers, by the way, in case some of them try to censor the information that you're looking up, by the way. So I'm here to tell you folks, it doesn't matter what side of the political spectrum you're on, but that is false information that NPR put out. And I know this for absolute fact, that Obama did spy on Trump's campaign, and it was involved with the FBI, as well as Hillary Clinton and other collusion, and multiple people were spied on as well by the previous administration. They even stated with this particular program, even regular U.S. citizens, as they call them, by the way, were surveilled as well. So the mainstream media has been complicit in putting out false information, fabricating false talking points, accusing everything that they disagree with politically being a conspiracy theorist. And I'm here to confirm that information is false in many cases. Not saying sometimes you do have independent or alternative media puts out information that may not be accurate, but this is also why I give a disclaimer for everyone to please do their own homework and research. But you notice whenever there's something that the mainstream media or someone in a political position of power does not agree with, they put out a false statement. Like, for example, recently with the arrest happened in Michigan, where I'm at, based on the story about these men who were supposedly coming up with this plot to kidnap Governor Whitmore. I saw her put out a statement that tried to accuse Donald Trump, saying during the debate he told the Proud Boys to stand back or stand by or whatever, which he did condemn white supremacy. However, when I had this relative send me this text message, I texted the relative back and let her know, no, the Proud Boys is a totally separate group. Now, in your eyes, might consider them a white supremacist group, but I don't. I see them as counter protesters, by the way. I don't see the Proud Boys looting, burning cities down, instigating fights with people, taking their food, doing violent acts. I don't see that. By the way, I've seen them at different events, different protests, but when the governor put out this statement to associate this particular militia group with the Proud Boys, these are two different groups. And I think she should have been specific with the distinct difference with that said. So she's trying to lump it in a category because they want to keep pushing racism. They want everyone on the left or people of color to see Donald Trump as being a racist. But however, he's done things contrary to someone who really is a racist, in some people's opinion, would not do things that racist people, in my opinion, would not do certain, by the way, in comparison to some of the policies that he's pushed forth. By the way, I won't say he's perfect. You know, he has his flaws like anyone else, but overall, I consider him to be a man of action. And you have to ask the question, before he took office, he was a businessman, and many of these politicians have been in office for years. So you have to critically think and ask the question, many of these Democratic politicians that are accusing him of these things, why have they not made major change? All of a sudden now they seem to care about Black lives, by the way, or these different movements. Why was this not going on years ago when some of these same instances were happening many years ago? By the way, that's going on now. Why is it all of a sudden in more recent times they seem to care or are switching things up? That's something to take into consideration, by the way. So they're waging a public relations campaign. If you study marketing, by the way, or communications, these collegiate classes touch on these different things. I don't see the Democratic Party, as far as being honest. This is another reason why I left them. In my opinion, they don't, a lot of the mainstream outlets that are controlled, by the way, do not do fair reporting, by the way. So I see someone else in the chat. Zelda Thomas says, so glad to see you. Thank you for joining, Zelda. Appreciate you all. In case you're wondering, I'm your host, John Dorsey, at Dorsey's Resource. If you haven't, you can follow me on YouTube. You can subscribe at Dorsey's Resource. Make sure you hit the notification bell in the bottom right-hand corner if you like the content that I put out. I'm also on Facebook, by the way, at Dorsey's Resource. I have two different Facebook pages for this particular channel. I'm also on Instagram at Dorsey's Resource _2019. That's my more liberal side, my more laid back side, by the way, in case you're wondering. My Instagram account might look totally the polar opposite. That's during downtime, by the way, when I'm just kicking back, chilling, whatever. My Twitter account, by the way, you can follow me at Dorsey's Resource. It's my more conservative side, by the way. It's where I'm more, I follow other Black conservatives and other people on there, by the way, in case you're wondering, which I don't shy away from. But I'm just going over my political views, because someone brought up a couple videos ago. They had asked me my thoughts on the Breonna Taylor situation. I had already given my opinion, but I might delve into that or things related once again, by the way. But I'm going over the reason why I would never come back to the Democratic Party. And the reason I'm doing this video is to basically get this off my chest, let my relatives know, or those who do follow my channel, my work, that I pretty much, I see the messages, but I follow the mainstream media. When I get off work, a lot of times I'll check Yahoo News, I'll check the mainstream headlines. I do read articles, by the way. When that story broke and my relative first texted me, I didn't text him right away. I went to WDIV Channel 4's website and read the article, by the way. So it's showing so far I've lost, saying my internet connection is unstable. Okay, let me see here. Guys, let me know. Give me a thumbs up in the chat if you guys are still following me. Okay, it said I had lost my internet connection for a moment there. It looks like I'm back. So I was double checking. Well, appreciate you all for joining me. So I'm going to delve right back into the information that I'm going over, by the way. Okay, here. It's a lot of information I have to go over. Okay. Appreciate you all, by the way. Just going over the reasons why I'm walking away. I don't have any plans on coming back to the Democratic Party. By the way, I have a lot of notes here. What I might have to do is create another document and transfer everything over so I can go directly to it, because I have like four different documents up that I plan on taking information from, and I have it mixed in with other notes in case you're wondering, by the way, in relation to what I plan on discussing for this specific topic, by the way. Okay, here's some things that are related, by the way, and here's one of my beefs with the Democratic Party. I feel like the Democrats, the liberal progressive party, by the way, doesn't address the needs of Black men or African American men. I feel like, and historically, when you study the civil rights movement, this was put even in the movie documentary Hidden Colors, some of you all might know about, made by Tariq Nasheed, where it talked about the feminist movement, which I touched on last night, was funded by the Rockefeller family. This is on record. If you're unaware, some years ago, a movie producer by the name of Aaron Russo did a movie documentary called Freedom to Fascism. I guess he had done one prior to that and was actually contacted by the famous Rockefeller family, which owns, is behind where the Today Show is filmed at in New York, by the way, the famous family. Well, Nick Rockefeller is one of the family members, admitted to him privately when he did an interview by Alex Jones some years ago on one of his reporters, by the way, that they funded that feminist movement. And I feel like the feminist movement hurt me, myself, as an African American man who's still single, because another thing, the Democrats go along with this liberal Hollywood agenda, where nowadays they consider there's this thing called toxic masculinity. As I said earlier, they want to break apart the family structure. I think that this is evidence that BLM, Black Lives Matter, I heard this was reported on recently, removed from their website, their ideological belief system, that they want to get rid of the nuclear family, by the way, maybe for damage control, because there's a lot of people who don't like that or are willing to go along with that. And I don't co-sign that. And I feel like it's an attack on my masculinity. And I feel like men throughout history have contributed a lot to society, to a lot of inventions and things that we have as well, that there needs to be fair and equal balance, by the way. So this is another pet peeve. So there was this rap artist, by the way, I was listening to this discussion about, where a lot of melanated females use the tenements of feminism, feminist ideology, which corresponds to the Democratic Liberal Progressive Party, where they like to take the benefits of situations like with the entitlement program, such as welfare, HUD, Section 8. And I myself personally, if I was a politician, I would not take away those programs. It was Republicans that actually authored the original civil rights legislation. I even found out that led to that Civil Rights Act that was passed, by the way, after Kennedy was assassinated by Lyndon Baines Johnson, when King and others in the White House, and Lyndon Baines Johnson was handing King the pen to, I guess, sign the bill or whatever or whatnot. But they tweaked it, by the way. There is a connection to with Lyndon Baines Johnson. You can look up his quote, what he said, and the control, how they use the women, and specifically in the Black community, by the way, to break apart the nuclear family structure many years ago, where a woman could not receive benefits if she had a man or male living in a household with her, which other things came along with these things, where they created and weaponized the child support legislation and things. I don't know all the information about, but that was used as a tool which specifically targets Black men and punishes them in many cases just for having relations, having a mate. By the way, if things don't work out, the male is the one that gets punished, by the way. And this is a connection, deep connection. The Democratic Party also, a lot of the donors and lobbyists pump money into Planned Parenthood, by the way, which the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has a lot of ties into. I hear the Bill Gates father worked for Planned Parenthood, by the way. If you look up the history on who he is and the research, by the way. So the Democratic Party, their value system does not align with my value system. In my opinion, they're more corrupt, by the way. And this is one of the reasons why I'm doing this video. I feel like the Conservative Party is the better option overall. They're not perfect. However, this is why I don't co-sign and will go along with the Democratic Party, because they promote feminism, and they put the woman at a high rank above the man. They give her a lot of benefits and put her in a protected class, when equally, I think there's Black men contributed a lot to struggle, not just from the civil rights movement, the slavery era, that my former history teacher showed. There was a movie called Glory that Denzel Washington and Morgan Freeman played in, where they fought, black men fought in the wars in years past, not just World War I, World War II, and the Civil War, and contributed to marching and fighting in the movement. But when it comes to divvying up the spoils, and I'm not trying to preach victimhood, but the Democratic Party seems to jump over, skip black men in particular. So black women, at the expense of black men, are willing to crush, weaken black men to take these benefits that feminism brings along. And they will, many Democratic candidates will promise things to the black urban community, but will champion other causes, by the way. You see, so that's another thing I have in the connection that I'm drawing from some of the notes, is that you have feminists, not all, but a significant portion of black women who co-sign this ideology, like to take advantages, benefits of the situation, but they don't want to deal with the consequences. Black men have experienced broken homes and neglect by not just the father, but however the mother in many cases harbors this bitterness towards the father and takes it out on her sons, by the way. Oftentimes this is not discussed or talked about. And I explained this to a subscriber who is an elder, and I was explaining that this is like the subject or the elephant in the room that is not brought up, but a lot of black men are neglected by their mothers, by the way, that this leads to this cycle, by the way, of dysfunction and self-destruction, by the way, and low self-esteem, by the way. And this is promoted by the Democratic Party, which has promoted Planned Parenthood, has promoted feminism, the state government welfare programs that have more so the black women's best interest at heart versus the man, from these entitlement programs that were signed into that civil rights legislation. So I feel like I feel like I know the Democratic Party does not care about black men in particular. They just use black men as pawns, by the way. And that's why many years ago, once again, it was Joe Biden who authored the 1994 crime bill, by the way, and Clinton signed it into legislation, which was responsible. Some people still locked up to this day, by the way, as a result. Because once if someone goes into prison, they can easily get caught up on other charges from the lifestyle, with things that you have to deal with in there, with gangs and other things. You can pick up other additional charges too once you get caught up in the system, by the way. So I see there's this association, deep association, that's deeply embedded with the Democratic Party, where black women like to take advantage of feminism through the benefits it provides them. However, they don't like to deal with the consequences when things don't work out. Another thing, when it comes to the Breonna Taylor situation, a lot of these other police-involved situations, and I'm not making an excuse for police officers who do bad things, but I notice a lot of these African Americans involved in these types of situations, when I find out more information about the story, that they're rebellious. A lot of them don't respect authority, by the way, when they simply just had to show their ID. And I even explained a situation with my relative many years ago, when the police had showed up one time at the house when the alarm had gone off, by the way, and the police, they looked through the window of the house. It was the Detroit police. This was some years ago. I was a lot younger. I was still living at the household, and they wanted to make sure that no one had broken in. So I answered the door. I think my younger brother or sister might have been there. I'm the oldest child. And they asked me for my ID to prove that I was living there. So I easily handed them my ID to prove that I, was a resident at the home, and it was just a false alarm. Later on, I had told my mother at the time, by the way, about what had happened. But there was no, problems. It didn't turn into a bad situation. But one of the things I've noticed about a lot of these encounters is because the media is promoting this, some Americans think in their mind that it's okay to just fight with the police, by the way, and display very bad behavior. Not saying that this will, if you comply, that'll keep you from something bad happening. There are anomalies that do happen, by the way, like the situation with Jonathan Price. That's a sad situation. But in many instances, why I see these individuals engage in immoral, reckless behavior, and the Democratic Party supports, like Kamala Harris and Joe Biden didn't significantly condemn. A lot of the George Floyd protests, in my eyes, were very peaceful at first, and then they turned egregiously violent, extremely violent at a certain point, and then it just escalated. And then it went into like a lot of cities around the country. And I asked, what is the solution? What did you all accomplish from this? And the Democratic Party supports this behavior, but always points the finger at white supremacy, but does not condemn groups like Antifa that have actually killed people. They even killed one of the Proud Boys members, something that happened out on the West Coast, by the way. Some of you all might know about that story. Antifa even tried to set a police station on fire. There was even a police station that was set on fire in Minnesota or whatever. Very egregious acts, which I don't see that coming from the Proud Boys, for example. Now you do have, different groups to be on the watch out for. Of course, by the way, you bad on both sides. So I think things need to be called out, and the Democratic Party does not condemn behavior like this. They even go as far as to say that these are peaceful protests. And I've even seen locally here in Detroit, there's this group called Detroit Will Breathe or something like that, that they call an activist group, where not too long ago, the Detroit police arrested they said over 40 people. They were trying to set up a chop zone, or also known as the Chaz zone, like Seattle had. This is what the paper read, and the police chief said the mainstream media was not accurately reporting the information that this group, they had to arrest members. They had turned extremely violent after a certain time at night. There's a curfew and you have businesses and places around. And I found out from reading the article, they were trying to set up a Chaz zone very similar to Seattle's Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. It's an acronym for what Chaz stands for. They were trying to do that here locally in Detroit. So I went to Detroit Will Breathe's website and I did investigations to look up what ideology, what do they believe. And I am, for, I think, some police reform, of course. Throughout the years, in case you all may not have been aware, there has been things that have happened where police have gone through more training. They always didn't have tasers and body cameras. The Republicans, Conservative Party, also signed a legislation for police reform as well, which the Democrats blocked because they control the House. By the way, it was a step in the right direction. Trump actually signed a bill, which this would have been a step in the right direction. The Democrats wanted more things. However, still did not allow this bill to pass, which could have prevented or helped prevent more African Americans and people from being killed in these types of situations. There are anomalies that happen, but from what I see overall, from my observation, going back to this group called Detroit Will Breathe, I looked on their website and they had things, of course, like they want to defund the police, but or something like that. Operation Greenlight, don't quote me on it, but you guys, it's where they have these businesses around the city of Detroit, stores, gas stations, have these high definition cameras that are supposed to help when it comes to apprehending suspects, because a lot of criminal activities were breaking out at gas stations. I even had a clerk tell me personally in a particular part of the city where I would go to get gas. Right across the street, there's a gas station directly across the street. I used to go to that station quite a bit, and she confirmed to me that there were men robbing people with AK-47s, by the way, when I followed up and asked this particular gas station. So the Detroit police chief said once they implemented Project Greenlight, it helped reduce the crime by over 60%. And this is good for the residents in the city who are trying to bring the city back. They went through the riots many years ago, by the way. So we don't need more corruption or cities burning similar to Minnesota or Wisconsin or parts of California or other places. Detroit has already been through tremendously a lot. But however, things could escalate and get far worse if you defund the police, which this group, Detroit Will Breathe, wants to do. They also, I noticed even in the area that I work at, they've removed these cameras where it was an area where it was known where these guys would dump, where they would steal cars and dump them there. Because there was a situation I dealt with very many years ago. I work as a security guard where the state police came in that area and told me, they asked me, they said they were looking for a LoJack. I didn't know what they were talking about. I said, what is LoJack? And then it didn't dawn on me at first. It was a stolen car, a Mustang or something that had a GPS tracker or whatever. And I just pointed in that direction where they went around the corner. It's like a back alley along the freeway. And sure enough, that's where it was. So the city had put cameras up there because someone told me they had done a news story, by the way, that a lot of certain people were doing illegal dumping in the same particular street. So these cameras and things help prevent help solve crimes, help prevent crimes as well. I've seen families on the news that have had innocent loved ones murdered from hit and run instances, different things. They use the cameras to help apprehend and catch these people. So without those high definition cameras, by the way, you would have, of course, you would see an increase in crime. It would make it more difficult for the police to apprehend these people. And I see many families that are crying when they lose a loved one or whatever. They plead with the general public to help find the loved one or someone who killed, murdered their loved one or whatever. Just speaking in general, with 1-800 Speak Up, which I think is it located in other cities, by the way. But I'm just giving you guys an example. But recently, I think past 6-3 that they're going to uphold, but I don't know how this is going to go. But this particular group called Detroit Will Breathe, I think they're doing more, it's going to do more harm than good if they totally lead to defunding the Detroit police. They're already shorthanded, by the way. And this is in turn for the residents that this can lead to anarchy and civil unrest, by the way. This is currently going on. And even after the George Floyd protests and riots, you're seeing violence break off all across the country. It's increased in a lot of major cities, not just Democratic ran cities, but a lot of places elsewhere. They also reported that there was a lot of people that had purchased guns and firearms even during the COVID thing. A friend of mine was telling me that it's become really hard now to come across, to buy firearms and ammo, by the way. So that's an indication that's not a good sign of what's potentially to come down the road, by the way. Okay, I see some more people jumped in the chat. I'm gonna answer a question. Gerald Jilk says the only cops I am afraid of is the female cops. They always got an attitude. Okay, yeah, I understand. I think you may be in Canada too, Gerald. But big shout out to you. Thank you for joining in the chat. Mary McFarlane says, so do you think blacks and whites are treated the same by cops? No, I don't. I will use, for example, that's a good question, by the way. There was a video that I saw with the Attorney General, William Barr, and I think not a lot of African Americans may know about this because they have TDS, Trump derangement syndrome. So anything or anybody associated with the current administration, number 45, they don't pay attention like I do. I'll read the articles, I watch the videos from both sides of the spectrum. I don't get triggered or anything like that. I can still watch Joy on MSNBC, CNN, but I listen to both sides. And William Barr actually said, yes, he does feel that African Americans are pulled over by the police more. So remember, I mentioned earlier, they actually had put together, and Trump had signed an executive order. I think it needed to go through the House, so it went the opposite direction. But since the Democrats control the House, they didn't want to sign this bill for police reform that would put more strict measures on the police, by the way. And Pence actually met with African American pastors during this time period. Trump even met with African American leaders and had like a press conference, a board meeting, by the way, which Fox News happens to cover. But because a lot of people, liberals or people who are Democrats, who claim to, know everything or, want to feel like they have the high horse, they don't watch programs like that because they have TDS, Trump derangement syndrome. I'm just saying, or they're very biased. But I myself was to catch that, so I'm able to get the real honest information and see that Trump was actually, he does care, by the way. And then I've been informed the video that Angry Man was doing not too long before I went live, he stated that Joe Biden on the record has more things that he said publicly, derogatory things about African Americans that could be construed as racist, by the way, as the left always points the finger at Trump. And also Joe Biden was good friends with former plantation owner James Eastland, former senator known as Jim Eastland. Look, you can look up James Eastland. And the New York Times put out an article and said that James Eastland was a Republican. No, he was not. He was a senator. So to fact check, you can look up the information on Wikipedia, make sure you document it. Remember, some years ago, the left tried to get the people at Wikipedia to alter some information to fit their narrative. So this shows how evil the Democratic Party is, the lengths and measures that they will go to. This is why I would never come back to the left. From a fair, honest, journalistic perspective, I'm just going over the reasons. This is why I'm doing this walkaway video and have a lot of information and giving my reasons why I would never be a Democrat. So also putting this video out because I know there's relatives that I have. I am originally from Cleveland, Ohio. I have on my personal Facebook page relatives who follow me. Sometimes my YouTube videos on there, not just my general pages, but my Facebook page, my personal page as well. So I'm also putting this for them, people I went to school with or whatever that are on the left, by the way. I don't drink none of the Kool-Aid. If I was a registered voter, which I'm not, I did show, by the way, this is my voter registration. This is 3 of them because a sister who woke me up many years ago, by the way, from a meeting that I attended privately. She said this is the first thing you all needed to do. And she stated at the time she used to be a Detroit police officer, and said that they used to teach her how to deal with sovereign citizens. And she told us this is the first thing you need to do is cancel your voter registration. And she also said don't be an organ donor as well. And these are 2 contracts, by the way, which are connected to the driver's license. In case you all are not aware, I went to the local Department of Election in Detroit. I think the clerk that's over is still Janice Winfrey, by the way, because actually the lieutenant governor, before he became the lieutenant governor, was actually running against Janice Winfrey. I had a relative who's liberal, who I believe did vote for Hillary Clinton, told me this privately. So I get information from both sides of the spectrum. So you're getting accurate information. But this relative told me the lieutenant governor, who's like second, kind of like the vice president of Whitmore, by the way, his name was last name, I can't remember his first name, but he was running for that local public office in the city of Detroit. He was running for like the city clerk that's over the Department of Elections. And my relative told me that at one of the polling locations, he was actually winning, leading in the polls. He probably would have won, but conveniently at one of the polling stations, they had a power outage. And you know, when the power outage, when the lights came back on, guess who came one was Janice Winfrey, who's also been in holding that office for quite a while, just like other career politicians in Michigan. If you are in Michigan, you definitely want to support Senator John James, who's running for senator against Gary Peters. I support him. He's someone who's actually been, he's a military veteran who served this country in the Air Force. He also, a friend of mine told me, owned, I believe, some franchises, one of them being Sam's Club. So he actually employed people, by the way, and he said he would support Trump 2,000%. They try to use it against him in the commercials, but I would say he's a candidate that I would support if I was a registered voter. If you are registered, you want to support John James, by the way. I think he's someone who definitely deserves a chance against other career politicians, by the way, just like Kim Klacik down in Baltimore, by the way, when you look at what's going on. But the reason I told that story, so in a way, you know, Gilchrist, who's now the lieutenant governor, may have been like rewarded, but he was running for that position. So my relative even told me, even amongst the Democratic Party, there's major infighting within the city, by the way, within people who are members of the Democratic Party. I've seen very egregious activities, misconduct cases on the local news, such as WXYZ, Channel 7, from reports, even from the former city council member, Charles Pugh, who went up in a scandal where he was having a homosexual relationship and some other crimes. And I heard when he first got into office that they had even stolen money or skimmed money off the table, by the way, from whatever the city budget that they use. But he was tracked down by the investigative journalist Ross Jones that works for Channel 7, which is WXYZ, connected through Scripps Howard, which is going through ABC, which ABC is owned by Disney, by the way. And I have a map to show many of the news agencies, local news agencies, lower level news agencies are controlled by super conglomerate corporations, which means they have a narrative that they're pushing. And if some of their journalists that work at these stations go against that, then they could be fired or terminated. So I do know that they're taking orders, but you still had a few good journalists left. So I have watched good reports locally from their investigative team, which I've liked throughout the years, such as the reports that Heather Cataldo has done, Jones, and Jim Kirchner. By the way, very excellent reports. I like the one in particular some years ago that I just said her name, by the way. Heather Cataldo, she did on this particular firm that was stealing houses from people that were supposed to go to their relatives. They were like estates that was supposed to get passed down, and it was like a whole big expose how the court system in this particular office was making money. There was like a team of lawyers, and they were basically underhandedly stealing houses from people to show they were using basically their abuse of power and misconduct. And that was a very eye-opening story because I think it has relations to information I've studied in the redemption education, by the way. And I think I've downloaded videos a long time ago, but they've done different investigative reports. You have even other local news stations that like the Fox 2, the Problem Solvers, and then the WDI Channel 4 Defenders. It's just nowadays the narrative has changed as of lately where they're promoting Black Lives Matter. They're promoting like stories with these run-ins with the police. So they're trying to shift the narrative away, which I can tell. That's why some people I feel like are just jumping on the bandwagon, by the way. But I'm going over, I have a good memory. And this is why I would never co-sign the Democratic Party and would never come back. I'm even looking at least if I don't move out of state, I can at least I'm trying to look at moving out of the city. By the way, where I'm leasing my apartment at. I feel like I'm paying too much to still be in the city. A friend of mine says I should have moved to the suburbs a long time ago. I actually could have, by the way. But but I'm looking at, definitely taking my tax dollars, getting out of the city because I've seen the corruption and the corruption is very rampant. I'm just letting you guys know from my observation, the Democrat Liberal Progressive Party paints this image that they're the party for the poor, for the little man, which in some instances I can see, but there's at the same time, there's way the corruption outweighs the good, so-called good that they do. And I just don't see some of these things, the majority of these things coming from the right, from the Republican Party, by the way. Lady Tech says, I canceled mine a few years ago. Okay, awesome. I see. Let me jump back up. Royal Goddess says, laugh out loud. Yep. The Lady Tech says, hi, Dorsey. Greetings to you. Thank you for joining, Lady Tech. Gerald Joke says, I have some cops treat all people bad. Yeah, I definitely understand. There are bad apples out there. So I don't want you guys to get it twisted, but I'm just going over how the media, the mainstream liberal controlled media is spinning the stories a particular way to fit their narrative, by the way. The things that they want to prop up and put on a pedestal, by the way. Mary McFarland says Republican and Democrats are all the same. I don't have anything to show from either. Yes, I agree for the most part. However, when it comes to Trump in particular, I think I've heard people say that they consider that he's part of the establishment. But in my opinion, several things, I don't think he's part of the establishment. I think if he was a club member, a part of the secret society, by the way, that would protect other members. If he, I think he by the way, is with this group allegedly that his father is, but he doesn't appear to me personally to be part of the club. He appears to be outside of the club because he's done things that go against this organization. And we've had a president not since John F. Kennedy who's gone against the grain or whatever, or the so-called establishment, by the way. And that's why certain members, even within his own party, are even against him, by the way. But I think it's in their best interest as far as Republicans to back him overall 100, 1,000%, because the Democratic Party, which is being funded by the ruling class elite, members of the group, the Davos group, by the way, that they're going to try to get rid of the Republican Party completely, by the way, and bring this country and try to overthrow this country and bring it into not just socialism, but full-fledged communism, by the way. So that's the difference, I think, this time around versus where Obama and George Bush, for example, or the Clintons, their establishment, by the way. The Clintons, the Bush, the Obamas, they all are establishment, even though they have different, political party affiliations. And you can even look at this way when you start to learn certain members of government. I even hear Gretchen Whitmer is a globalist, by the way. Now, I don't know if she was an attendee at any of the Bilderberg meetings, because they keep that very secret. But remember, the Bilderberg group recruits high-level CEOs of major corporations, major politicians from local levels all the way up to real high from around the world. They have their meetings around the 1st of every June every year in a different country, by the way. And generally, the way they did things in the past, I heard because of COVID, they canceled their meeting this year, allegedly. But in years past, they've had it in the United States during an election year, by the way. But they actually, I think they had gotten smart, because they normally, the past couple elections, they had their meeting in Chantilly, Virginia, but they were met with protesters, because many years ago, they never wanted there to be public attention or any activity. And I found out they didn't want any major mainstream media attention. If you guys remember many years ago when Obama and Hillary Clinton were running against each other and they went missing from the mainstream media, reported they didn't know where they were at. I found out they had attended the Bilderberg meeting at the Marriott Hotel in Chantilly, Virginia, which they had a follow-up meeting at that same location during some follow-up election years. But I think by 2016 or whatever, they got smart. They had extra security. They amped up the fences. They put like more barriers around and blockades, and they blacked out the fences, put like, things to cover them so you couldn't really see. And then they got smart this time around and just decided to have it in a different country. But because of COVID hit, allegedly, when I went to their website, canceled it. But you understand that the Illuminati is real. The global criminal syndicate does exist. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is a fact. I do have books on them, by the way. Here's another book, by the way. This is called Bloodlines of the Illuminati by Fritz Springmeier. By the way, he's also like a historian. He went to West Point some years ago, that military school, by the way. Just a little bit of background, but he investigated some of these families, these bloodlines or whatever, by the way, who come from many from aristocratic nobility, except here's another book that goes over the symbols of some of the signs, by the way. This is by the author Tex Mars. As you see, it was purchased at Borders Books. The sticker's still on the back, by the way. Get some more lighting in here. Here's the stove. And here's another book that a friend of mine he actually had purchased this book, but it goes over homegrown terrorism, how, see if I can give you guys a little tidbit of it, but different, throughout history, different groups that they label as different domestic terrorists or whatnot. Because I heard that so-called in Michigan that was raided, that has been indicted or something like that. You guys know, you're pretty sure you've heard that they had sent informants in, and they did the same thing similar to the Black Panthers. So they have books on this type of stuff. I'm showing you evidence, resources that you guys can actually get. So if they try to label what this video I'm doing as fake news, or you can fact check it, do your own research. I put in my disclaimer, but I'm showing you there's actual evidence, there's books, by the way. And so I'm trying to look at see if I can find some famous pictures or photos of some people, stuff you recognize. They had the civil rights activist Medgar Evers, who my mother told me about many years ago. I didn't know who he was. He wasn't as popular as Martin Luther King or Malcolm X, but they did a video about how J. Edgar Hoover was a known racist who was really good friends with Lyndon Baines Johnson, remember, he was the vice president under Kennedy that took over after Kennedy was murdered, assassinated. So the one that made that quote, by the way, you can look it up, do your research, and even started calling Martin Luther King after Martin Luther King started speaking against the Vietnam War at the time. I saw a documentary that showed this. A lot of this information they tried to scrub, and the Democratic Party has been complicit in covering this information up too. By the way, there's some other information I haven't touched on about the Democratic Party's connection to the Ku Klux Klan, by the way. So I'm just showing you guys evidence. It was a documentary. I don't know what it was called. And some information has even been removed from YouTube. But I remember years ago, you used to be able to look this information up easily and pull it up just like that. There was an activist you can look up, see if his videos are still around. His name is Steve Coakley. Matter of fact, I can check for you guys and post it in the chat section to show you all evidence if his information is still out there, by the way. Yep. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna see ANC Steve Coakley. Okay, I'm gonna put it on the boule.
Every week I've been in there.
Okay, the story behind this guy, his name was Steve Coakley. By the way, I hear this background he gave. He used to work for the mayor's office in Chicago many years ago. He's now deceased, but he was an activist from years past. I even think, in my opinion, that Alex Jones even got some of his information. By the way, he's used. I just posted the link in the chat section in case you guys are curious. He has other videos as well, by the way, where he exposed this group, the Black Boule, because what's going on is you have Black secret societies, and they can easily infiltrate and send informants in like they did the Black Panthers, like what's going on with these militia groups. And a lot of times these people have connections to not only this group, by the way, not saying this makes all the members who are part of this bad, but other fraternities and sororities. And he exposed that and shows the symbolism, which Tex Morris goes into his book, Codex Magica, by the way, that actually shows online. I already researched, you all can do. They covered up this information. You know, they didn't want people to know about this, by the way, that there are deep connections, even though they're always pointing the finger at Trump, but the racism is within the Democratic Party. They created the KKK. And the Deep South was known for being very racist, prejudiced, by the way. I'm just saying, look it up. Don't take my word for what I say. So this is what the book that I'm reading from right here. I'm gonna go over some other notes, information I have. I know who this is. By the way, see if there's other people there. By the way, a friend of mine, he gave me this book. He had another version, which I don't remember all the details about, but he does research. He's like the equivalent of a 5-star historian. So I check with other people, like I fact check, cross-reference my own information to make sure the information I'm bringing you all is accurate, by the way. I just want you all to know as my followers. So I'm equipping you guys with the skill sets to do research like the way I research, and doing deep investigative research to let you guys know there are books and resources out here to look up. So, as I was going over earlier, in case you're joining me, guys, don't forget to hit the thumbs up. If you get a chance, you can subscribe to me. I'm your host, John Dorsey at Dorsey's Resource. I also have a backup channel called Dorsey's Resource Channel 2 that should be in the description box after this video uploads. You can go subscribe over there. You can follow me on Facebook at Dorsey's Resource. I'm also on Twitter at Dorsey's Resource. And I'm on Instagram at Dorsey's Resource _19. Now, Instagram is my more liberal, laid back side. My Twitter handle is my more conservative side. In this video, the topic I'm going over is basically why I walked away, why I left the Democratic Party, and I'm never coming back. Because I get these articles and things, but nothing would convince me. If I was a registered voter, I would have easily, would know without a heartbeat, voted for Trump in 2016, and even in this election. And I know some may say that, you know, that sounds like you're being a hypocrite, Dorsey. Heard that before, but I want to let you know I still respect voting, but I'm in a different category, by the way. And there's some other things I can get into. Found out there's a different status. By the way, they don't have available a certain category for some. They hide, but there's a particular, because when you register, that's a form of a contract. By the way, just keep that in mind. And I finding out that people overseas, sister had put me up on this video she shared with me where I had found out some other people overseas are finding out or studying and watching these videos and other videos related, basically, and are finding out even in, I'll say, another country, and I'll just leave it at that. So there's people that are doing their research and homework, by the way, and I commend all of the people out there that are waking up because the ruling class, these people, they want to dumb you down. They don't want you to think and do your research. By the way, they want to try to suppress this information and voices. That's why if you look at Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, as well as others out there that are censoring speech, this is concerning. By the way, hopefully they can, these antitrust laws or cases can be brought up. People, I recommend, if you have the money, the wherewithal, to definitely file file a lawsuit if you've been a victim, if you feel like you've been targeted from YouTube, Facebook, or these web hosting platforms. By the way, you should file a lawsuit, by the way. You know, and just my opinion, because, you know, things could get worse. Like I said, I talked about in the video that I did last night, like North Korea, where they lock people up. Also, you're welcome. Don't hesitate to chime in the chat section if you have any statements, I say, in relation to this video that you would like to address, or any questions, by the way. But I was going over once again that I have not been a registered voter since 2004, but I still uphold those who are going to participate in this election. I commend you, those who already have. Make your voice heard. I'm in a different category, so I don't want to make it seem like I'm a hypocrite. So understand that. But my tax dollars that I spend when I work still contributes to the GDP of this economy, the gross demand, in other ways. It's just I do not want to be attached to the negative consequences that comes with being a registered voter and certain contracts as well. So keep in mind, as a free American, by the way, you have the freedom to choose, you know, just keep that in mind. I shared this with a relative, by the way, and I did a video about this, some of these things related, on my second backup channel. So in case you're wondering, you can go over there, check that video out. Let me know, by the way. The lady text says, do you know about the Bloomberg trials? No, I've heard of the Bloomberg terminals. Okay. No, I don't know about that. By the way, you could elaborate. I'm welcome. I'm open to hearing information. I heard he said he was going to spend $100 billion or something like that towards Biden and Kamala. By the way, it's like he has a lot of money. He's a billionaire, just like George Soros. By the way, so I don't know if that has something to do. Of course, they were caught cheating in the past. They did do some cheating, even though Trump still won by a large amount in 2016. By the way, I heard even in the state of Georgia, in real time, they were trying to flip the machines for in favor of Hillary Clinton. By the way, and Homeland Security or something, they had to come in and stop it. By the way. But in live time, I heard reports that people voting in the state of Wisconsin that voted for Trump, they saw from using these electronic voting machines, their votes were flipping for Hillary, by the way. So it's not a coincidence. I've heard that Soros owns voting machines and stuff like that, but I think they're going to try to do their level best to make this election fair, by the way, fair and honest election. By the way, because you guys obviously know, you've heard about the mailing thing, the ballots I don't know all of the details and stuff with that. But however, there have been reports. There was a lady, a guest that Alex Jones had interviewed some years ago by the name of Beth Harris. She's supposedly like bipartisan. She's neutral. She's actually a liberal, but she's like an overseer that oversees fraud, voting fraud, and corruption. And she reports show that even when Obama really technically from her reports, it's neither here nor there because it's past, but they flipped that Romney was going to win that night. Remember, he was in a significant lead earlier on, and I heard in Obama's second term, Obama won the first election in a landslide. That was real. His numbers were astronomical. But his second term for reelection against Mitt Romney, Romney actually won. But she said they used the things and there was fraud. There was from the indication, I guess, that comes from the group or agency she works for that's able to track what they were doing. And I remember that night, I even had a friend, he was a liberal, by the way. He was a Hillary Clinton supporter. And he called me the following day. I was on the phone with him, and he said it was very suspect how Romney was in the lead that night significantly. I remember seeing posts on Facebook from Obama supporters who were concerned, very worried that he was going to lose based on the momentum that Romney was at. Then all of a sudden, by the end of that night, Obama had won re-election. But Obama, that's another example. Him and Romney was like a neocon, basically. When someone made mention earlier, Marie McFarland, Republicans and Democrats being the same, Romney is a former, he's like that, he's establishment. But I would say it's in his best interest, because he is a Republican, to get and double down and support Trump, because the party that's his opposition, that's his competition, and the ruling class elite want to make the Republican conservative party obsolete. They want to destroy them, by the way. So that's why I think it's in their best interest. All the Republicans need to double down and support Trump, and even the people out there that know the truth, that are really woke. Conservatives are the better option, in my opinion. They're not perfect, but the Democrats I'm going over while I'm doing this walkaway video, they're way more egregious with the activities they've committed. I saw too many stories on the local news here, and even in other cities, by the way. So the lady sex seems like they are all corrupt. The D's, yes, I heard that many cases. So yes, but for the first time ever, I think Trump, he's not bought, he's not paid off by many previous politicians. You have to look at it like this. A friend of mine pointed out that, keep in mind, Trump made his money before he got in the office off of golf courses, real estate, apartment buildings, casinos, hotel chains, and things. But you look at Democratic politicians before they went in office. Remember when Obama went into office and they mentioned what him and Michelle, they said it was around 5 million, by the way. And I was like, what's the importance of this? Like, part of the initiation, you have to write a book. A lot of times you're going to be a lawyer or whatever before you go into office. It's going to be, ways, because remember, him and Hillary each had a book. They were running a vicious campaign against each other in the primary. She eventually conceded. By the way, when they met privately at the Bilderberg meeting, I heard that because the Rockefellers primarily controlled America, they wanted to see Obama